That's last year's, but we have the same one as last year.
I've used it before.
Yeah. I can get it. We just need to change the title, not.
There's people in.
Oh, your tabs.
You just write down about my tasks.
Exactly. I don't even know what you're doing. Okay.
Yep, so Kristen's on anyway, Kristen Luther, or well, maybe. Oh, I'm in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
Can we try this?
All you've missed is we approved the agenda and now we're just moving on to consent items, so. Any questions?
How many, the newsletter, since it's sent out electronically, how many do we send out hard copy over?
32.
As opposed to like
400 and some.
next.
It saves a lot of money.
Yeah.
Online, it can color and you can click on live links.
Yeah.
There's still a few people who still want it. I can just.
Oven situation, I don't know if that's in here, if we're talking about that from the lunchroom. It's the broken oven, which I'm just wondering if that's.
I think it's fixed,
Okay.
but I just saw the email that she had to change the menu because the oven was not working, but Taste never mentioned to me that the oven wasn't working. I'm not sure what the story is. I can definitely.
I do remember her, saying that switch around, but I do think it's been fixed. I just haven't seen the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened or it was one oven, lots of ovens. Or I just saw the email about we to change the menu.
Yeah.
I'll ask her though.
Those, the good one Tuckers that you saw on there, that is for like the cooler, the gaskets for the coolers or whatever. I think that should probably come in our breakdown insurance, not the SU, but our EMC. And so, I have a question into Bill to see if he is sending that to them, if he's going to. Has asked them, or it should be in our EMC because it's part of the building. You can't like remove the cooler. It should be our EMC breakdown. Can't find it on here at the moment. That there was something on here about, I assume it was something vertical. Yep. That, Corey asked about that too. That is one of the PE teachers asking for software or something to measure the vertical.
That's actual.
I don't know what, it's actual, okay, okay.
Measures when you jump, instead of measuring your height, your jump, it just takes.
The air between the.
Correct, and it figures it out. So it's just a piece we use in our weight and speed class. Was it a couple $100, 200-300?
About 1,000, yeah, it was nine something.
Might check on that. Look at something.
Yeah, it was 6, yeah,
Short of night.
949. Yeah, it was our 8.
Eight something,
897 or.
the different levels and
879.
electronic one. Must be. Hmm.
Anything?
No,
Anything else? Okay. No other questions? I'll take a motion to approve the consent items.
so moved.
Can we have a second?
Second.
All those approve the consent items, say aye.
Aye.
Those say no. Consent items are approved.
I just want to bring it to your attention or ask you. We've just finalized the numbers for 22-23. I just certified our three big annual reports on Friday. And we are carrying over $43,000 in pre-K funds from the last 2 years. And just recently, within the last couple of years, the DE has opened up some of those categorical funds. They can be moved into a flexibility account. So then when you move those funds into the flexibility account, then they lose their tags that were originally associated with them. So then we can actually use it for full general fund dollars without any earmarks on them.
That's specific for the pre-K.
Pre-K, there's few.
Okay.
Pre-K is really the only one that affects us because we use the funds in all of the others.
Okay.
TQPD's one,
Homeschool
home,
assistance.
HSAP, yeah, homeschool, pre-K. Seems like there's another one, but anyway, over the last couple of years, so since we brought pre-K in-house, we have banked up some money since we brought it in-house, because it used to be that we just, if we got funding of $90,250, we gave them the whole 90,000 and we got the $250. But now that we brought it in-house, we're paying the pre-K teacher out of it, we're paying the para out of it, anything that the pre-K teacher wants out of it, and we still have some funds left over. And the 43,000 isn't even counting on the 90,000 that we're getting from this year yet. So I asked Cass if he was okay if I flexed those monies. I see it being like maybe a one-time thing, or maybe once every few years or whatever, if they keep it happening. And he was okay with it, as long as we made sure that we were taking care of the free school fund. So if you all are okay with that, then I actually need to bring it to you in a resolution, and there needs to be a public hearing for it. So we're not changing funds or anything. It's all still in the general fund. Just by moving it to a flexibility account, we're then able to spend it on other general fund expenditures. We also have to say in the resolution what we intend on spending it on, and we intend on spending it on salaries and benefits. If you're okay with entertaining that thought, then I'll go ahead and get it on for next month so that you all can proceed.
Sounds fine. to me.
Okay, too.
We'll actually have two quick, what are they called?
Public hearings.
Public hearings, because next month we'll also approve the start date for the calendar. You know, but we always just have to have that little crazy thing we approved.
Just need to back to back.
Yeah. Gotcha. Then we'll start on August 23rd, and then we'll move.
All right, is there any correspondence? Okay. On the public forum.
In the email that I sent you on Monday were 3 different documents this time. The first one was a news article that came out, I think like a day or 2 after last month's board meeting. And the information has actually been updated since then, but it deals with news sources that are pledging to only use facts as they write their article. That brings up the issue I wanted to get to, is what is determining the facts here. And I just thought I would use as an example the education article, because one came out a few days after that just had an update on the state exams. But I'm old enough, back when Corey was in school, with my kids in school, when the state exams were very different. Not all students were given the state exams. Some of the test scores when they were low were not counted. And every time 50% of the students couldn't pass them, then they lowered the standards, which is what brought on No Child Left Behind in 2002. You got to get those standards up and keep them there, because it's having an effect on thinking and problem solving skills, and it was definitely affecting, looking at the stats from those exams, the quality of the decision making that was being done in the system of education at that point in time. Then, of course, 13 years later, we got ESSA to stop the discrimination against the students that were considered defective. I think that was one of the words that our previous superintendent Todd used the month before he was out of here, because he was still part of the old school of thinking. And I don't know if he's changed his mind since. But what is the source of the facts that you want to rely on? Because that gets us into AI and that chat GPT and all that other stuff. Is the more you understand where the facts are coming from, what is generating them, the better job you can do of figuring out if you're being scammed or if it's something you can really work with and use. Another example, since this is an election time, of polling stats out there, who is actually being polled? You have a variety of demographic data you can get from the Census Bureau by location, so that you have an idea of various age groups, various nationalities, various income factors, various education factors. They have different positions on issues for the effects on their lives. And where is this all coming from? How much detail do you have? Then, what is the wording of the question you're asking them, and what are the options for response that you're providing them? That has an influence on the outcome too. I used to teach a stats class, and that was one of the things we got into, so I'm familiar with that. Location can have a lot to do with it, because having spent 15 years working for the farm credit system, I know you could be growing the same crops in different places in Iowa and have a completely different set of circumstances, so you're getting different results. Well, the same thing is true around the country. And I bring that up because they're also trying to put a farm bill together now, and people with a different set of circumstances can take different positions on it. So where are your facts coming from? How are they being generated? Because it can make a difference in how well your problem solving is doing. The third item that is in the document I sent you was an email, since I teach for the University of Maryland. We got that 2 weeks ago today. And it's an overview of where we're headed with regard to AI and ChatGPT in relation to specifically thinking and problem solving skills and how we're going to plan to address it. And I just got an email today from the new head of our department as of last May. We've been October 4th, 2 weeks. We have an online discussion among instructors of more specifics. They listed 4 things, and I looked at those. Well, I've been doing that in my online discussions with my students anyway, and I found out in exchange with him in May when he was named to the position, he's been doing the same thing too. So I thought, okay, so apparently we're going to have a staff discussion of those points, but they all focus around the same thing of learning more about actual facts you are seeing out there, where they're coming from, how to best apply and use them. And those are some skill sets. So if a lot of these things are not actually being discussed yet in some of the discussions you're having around the school, maybe there's something there that could add some points to the discussion for you to consider. Next month, I plan on getting into facts with regard to specific things used in the curriculum in different areas, because maybe that will help you with some of the parents that have some issues there. But the time constraints, I thought I'd save that till next time. So thank you for the time.
The principal's reports.
You want me to start? That's how much you have. Yes, you
Decent
got a
amount.
lot, and you go first, and then I'll just shorten mine up.
All right, so I'll start with talking about our counselor report from the summer school, and then summer school reports, things that I mentioned briefly in our last meeting, but thought I'd bring some data that was given to me from not only our counselor who ran summer school counseling hours, but also from our teachers who did some summer school. So from our counseling report, we had 10 days, which totaled 40 hours of time in the summer. During that time, she had 19 total students come, but there were 42 total visits over those 40 hours. So it was a utilized piece that we implemented. She made sure the times connected well with our summer school. So any kids that wanted to come from summer school to see her individually could. We did open it up to all students, K-5, to come and visit. But for her, our hope was she could continue to build the relationships that he has with kids throughout the summer to make sure that things didn't fall off as we came back for fall. And felt like that was a big benefit as we came back to school, knowing that she didn't miss out on 3 months worth of time with those kids that she regularly meets with, and students that maybe she doesn't always meet with. Another thing from the summer in our summer school, we did have 2 different groups, one led by Cheryl Russell and one by Casey O'Rourke. And we had it consistently 12 to 14 kids in school. We went for 3 weeks in June and another 3 weeks in August. So we took July off and tried to see how the data would look by taking a month off in the middle, as opposed to spreading it out for 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on throughout the whole summer. So just taking a different vantage point from it. And the results are pretty good. So I mean, Cheryl's group alone, 4 out of the 6 kids either maintained or improved. The 2 that didn't show that, it was minuscule things. It was -2 words or whatever. So it's not like it was a massive drop. It was showing that we did exactly what we wanted it to do, right? We wanted to make sure the kids didn't go home for 3 months and not have anything in front of their faces. They provided those kids that opportunity. A lot of it was really focused on phonics. So most of the instruction was based in phonics. And then a lot of graphing and making sure kids know what graphing looks like, hot read versus cold read. But really wanted to make sure the emphasis was on reading enjoyment and making sure that they find love in reading, and continue to make sure that they have things in front of their faces all summer long. So again, something that we thought was beneficial for those kids that showed up consistently. Again, I think we offered it to over 20, 16 of them, I think, took us up on it, and 12 were pretty consistent in coming throughout the summer months. So we're pretty proud of that and where it came, and pretty unhappy with those teachers who spent that time to do that. Appreciative of them. So
Did you have any numbers from the other class then?
not specific
Okay.
for 6 or anything like that, just it was that they showed that they were maintaining their progress. We did just have our butter break fundraiser for the elementary that now raised over $4,000 for us to be able to use in various ways in elementary. I paid for a little bit of some field trips that we'll have for kids there. Also, most of it's going to be helped raise for future projects at the playground and or recess materials, or anything that we think is beneficial for students as we move forward. So that was a great initial fundraiser to our year. I'm excited for all the families that participated in that and thankful to them. We did also purchase a STEM cart. I mentioned that briefly last time. That's now been started. So Greg has started to implement that within some of his classes. We do it 2 different ways. So we did try and move how we've done our special. Previously, we had a library special, and now we're calling it a library/STEM special. So we're spending a little bit more time emphasizing our STEM. So students will sometimes go and receive a library instruction. Sometimes they'll go and receive STEM instruction. And the cart's been useful to be able to move things from place to place to place. It's not always having to be in the STEM room. It can go from anywhere it really needs to go to be able to do that instruction. And it's been a great benefit. We also have weekly STEM that Greg runs for a period of day. And we just basically put a single grade level teacher with Greg for the whole week. So they'll focus on an individual STEM skill with that one class for the whole week. And then we'll rotate it through the whole elementary so that everybody gets a full week of STEM instruction in the first semester and another one in the second semester. So that started, that's underway. That's been a good thing. We did purchase over the summer and had a lot of training over the 95%, which is a phonics and phonemic awareness curriculum that we have now started to implement. And I've heard nothing but good things from our teachers. Are ecstatic with how it runs, how easy and clean it is, focusing on the skills that maybe we thought they have, but maybe they don't, and getting a better, clear picture as far as where kids are in their reading progress. So it gives them a little bit of a diagnostics to know exactly where kids are, what skills they're deficient in, and be able to then intervene within those. So it's doing what we needed to do. We wanted to have an impact on our reading win time. So that's that 20-minute chunk of time that we're saying we know that kids are missing skills. What are the skills and how are we going to make sure that they're getting the skills? This gives us that ability to know exactly to what we need to do with each kid. So we're hoping to see that our WIN implementation, that the intervention time is going to have an impact based on our assessments that we get and receive and implement through 95%. So that's been great, a great start to our year. I have to mention that our new teachers have just hit the ground running, are doing an amazing job. We obviously have two new kindergarten teachers that have been dealt a dynamic hand, but they are tackling it wonderfully. So I appreciate them. There's so many things, and our group has sit and talked about the things that we need to do better at the beginning of the year to decide how we can better make them ready for their first couple of days in school or their first couple of months. That's been nice to hear, not only their opinions of what we can do to help support them better, but there are so many things that when you walk into a new job that you have to learn, and then you just start to figure those things out as you go. So figuring out what they think is most important has been nice to help us plan for the future. And they've been very open to giving us their feedback on where they are right now, how they're feeling, if they're overwhelmed, all those things. But tremendous hires at those positions. So that's been great. We did just last week get done with our fast math screening results. It's not completely done. They're preliminary. We still have 8 students to test, but we sit right now building wide at 76% of kids meeting benchmark. That's very in line with where we have been predominantly in the fall screening period for math over the last couple of years. It's been one of the stronger of the two for sure. But the AEA, our AEA region is at 70%, and the state of Iowa is at 68%. So above those two numbers in that meeting the benchmark period, which is great. So I'll update you more on reading results next time because we're doing that this week. So I'll kind of give you an update on where we sit within those reading screeners at our next meeting. And then the last thing that we've installed this year is a math win. So previously we've only had a chunk of time for reading win. Every year we go through as an elementary building and go through our SAMI, which is basically a self-assessment of where we sit with our MTSS implementation. And one thing that kept coming up is that we didn't have a set aside time to intervene on math skills. So we wanted to make sure that we inputted that time. Now we have an inputted time for math that at the same time, every single day, all grade levels are having a 20-minute chunk of time for math win. It's in its infancy stages for sure, but our hope and goal is that we'll be able to move kids freely around the entire elementary to be able to intervene on skills that they need. So we're currently, and over the first 4 weeks, have been doing a lot of diagnostic work, trying to figure out what those skills are, where they need to be, and then we'll try and group them based on those skills. And over time, we'll be able to screen them to make sure that we're having an impact on that time. That was my biggest thing, is that if we're going to set aside a big chunk of our time and day, we want to make sure that that's having an impact, and we need to be able to track that impact. And I've met with BLT multiple times on how that's going to look and what we need to do to help support that time. But do feel over time that it will have a tremendous impact on our math and hopefully get us over that 80% hump that we've been looking to get over for many years. We're close at 76, but we want to be at 80. So hopefully in the next coming weeks, that'll come to fruition. So with that, I know that was a lot. I'm sorry.
That's good.
The first thing I need to do is get an approval for our FFA trip for next month to Indianapolis. It's the same trip we always take. Ms. Van Dusen has done a great job organizing it. Right now, I think the number is 9 and another chaperone parent that she's taking, but at any trip that's out of state, we have to get board approved. So that would be great for it.
I'll make a motion to approve the FFA trip to Indianapolis next month.
You have a second? People say aye.
Aye.
We'll see no.
The next thing I'd like to get approval for is to cancel homecoming. We'll talk about homecoming, which is next week. The first part of homecoming is exciting because I will not be in the building for the first 2 days with our admin team. So it just landed on a tough 2 days, but it's also 2 days. Oh, sorry. We will be in at times. The theme this year is Barbie Dream House with some sort of a lot of dress up days around Barbie and Ken and all of that. Our student council with Andrew Berg's done a great job. So we've, last year it was Mr. Amadeo, he left, so Andrew's picked that up as our student council. They've met multiple times. Little bit of a problem, I think somewhere it got put out for Mr. Pierce, of lack of communication or miscommunication that it was September 15th. So we kind of did some scrambling on that it's now on the, obviously it's next week, 29th. We just thought 15th was too quick. We're gonna do our bowl battles, we're gonna do our powder puff, our spirit walk into our coronation and dance Saturday night. Everything will look the same. And our kids are doing a great job organizing that. So that is next week. They come in, actually, one of the newer traditions is decorate the hallways on Sunday night. They've done a great job doing that. And our kids have done a great job leaving the hall decorated all week. So excited for homecoming. I want to mention our participation rates. Dennis and I were 3 hours of windshield time to our conference principals and AD meeting today. And we were just going through some notes and some data. Our participation rates are at an all-time high, which is fantastic. And that would be 712. We have more kids involved right now in fall activities than we've ever had by percentages. Kind of goes to the middle school is the largest middle school we've ever had by quite a bit. It just happens that those 3 grades are really full for us, which is a great problem to have from a financial standpoint or a student count. We're feeling it in those hallways. We're feeling it. Luckily, we have that great commons area, even splitting classes. We're in the, in the upper mid, there's 23s and 24s in classes and some, it just feels like it's a lot. And I know that kind of cycles. And on the other hand, the high school feels a little empty because we have so many kids utilizing online classes, career academy classes, school to career. There's just so many good things happening, but it's putting them in some alternative times out of the building. So it's just funny when you go down to the middle school side, if you happen to walk around, it feels like a lot. And you walk up in the high school and say, are they taking the day off? Not really, but it feels that way a little bit. I did have a note. I didn't write it after Haskell. It was one of my top notes on our new teachers. So first of all, we know our teachers are taxed every day with so much, and they do such a great job. But when we bring in new staff, and Wendy's done a great job of surveying new staff, are they getting what they need? We're probably going to at least recommend that we increase some of our time with new staff next year before they come in. I have 7 new staff. That's a lot in a staff of 22 or 23. I mean, a third of the staff. And you put a lot of time and effort into their rooms and support. You just don't know. But the culture with our new staff has been fantastic. I mean, I couldn't truly be happier as a group of new staff coming in that we've ever had, up and down. I mean, and one of the ironic things, I came in and saw you guys, it feels like it's been a long time since I've been at this table. I was walking down the hall, day 2, Lisa Cross, we know, is doing our ELA, full-time teacher there, and Joyce Christensen was subbing for Cassie in the maternity, and I just kind of got taken back to the early 2000s of Joyce at the board table and then Lisa, and I'm like, man, we're all bringing time back for the last year, but that's been really, really good. Lisa's done a great job. We know math is a focus for us right now. If you're looking at our data is going to tell us we've got to do something to improve in math. I can go on and on about our MTSS, and at the high school, middle school level, a lot of that just falls on those instructors with support in the success team and support of SPED, but it's hard to connect an English teacher, a social studies teacher, where Hass's teachers, they're all math teachers. So we're working on it. Fran DeVore is our new math instructor, and I have been just over the moon with how hard she's working in there, curriculum-wise, instruction-wise. Dennis and we both said today, I just could go on and on about our new staff, knock on wood, but I feel like they have also really hit the ground running. Not a lot of stress, not a lot of what am I doing? Some of it's non-traditional, new teachers, which also helps as well. I just also want to mention, really, the last thing was, again, last year we used some seniors for paras. We are in probably dire need of some para support real soon. I think Hass would probably say the same. We see the kids that came into us, many of them brand new, many of them coming with some needs, and that's one of those things. And we already have some seniors, I think 1, maybe 2, who are going to start spending some time with some kids. That's just a great thing we implemented last year. That's on Travis. Travis has kind of taken that on, finding kids that have their opens that would be great to work with other students and then matching them up it's a win-win-win across the board. And we're going to continue to do that and probably even add a couple more for at least just a period a day pretty soon. But anytime we can utilize that K-12 building, I'm sure Mike was going to talk about the Namibia crew that was here. We had a crew from Africa here this week that was at a higher ed through Iowa State, their ed department. And it was just a lot of the conversation I had with them walking around was what that K-12 atmosphere, one example, and then I'm done, was we were into FCS, new teacher, Jules McGrew, and just a hex. The kindergartners drew, was an animal, was that what it was? An animal? A monster. And then they had the picture, and then our middle school kids used those pictures to build little pillows, sewing project to build the pillows to then give back to the kindergarten kids. It's just little things like that a lot of other places can't do, and we need to continue to try to utilize all those K-12 opportunities that we have. So, ball's off and it's rolling, and we'll have more to report next month for sure once we get our feet on the ground a little bit. So, questions? Principal's report?
Yeah. Will the FFA kids come after they?
We sure can. I mentioned that to Ms. Van Dusen. They would be more than happy. And again, a sidebar when I talk about new teachers, our leaders in the FFA happen to be female students right now, and they have gravitated. It's been really good. The transition, Bill did a great job, but he had a lot of maybe technology, the shop type. Those kids gravitated to Mr. Funnemark last year, and that's great. Right now, we have some very science-oriented girls that are taking a huge lead, and we're going to see a difference out there in what ag instruction and ag sciences really are. It will be less shop, definitely more around, animal science and agronomy. They're talking about trying to get a grant for, they started with the greenhouse. There's kids that are rolling out there and they're looking at grants, and it's the aquaculture of fish type thing. And they're excited, and she's, fueling that, which is great right now. Yeah.
We still got
Yeah, I was
the
gonna say.
tanks out back.
We have some resemblance of some of the tanks out there. I think they're starting, we had that was.
Been around a while.
Yeah. I was off the picture when I got into selling fish like crazy. So I said, it's not, it's,
Yeah, this Joel's major actually.
Oh, really?
It's not using that too great, but it's a major.
really.
Yes.
Guest speaker right there.
Not
Yeah.
suggest, not making a motion.
She's done a great job of getting, if you ever walked occasionally out there the last times, and let's just say 10 or 15 years to, if you walk now, you will see a change in what she wants, the classroom set up, the shop, she's working. It's not overnight, but you can sense a pretty good feel out there right now. So it's good.
Probably did go longer than Hess. So.
No job for sure. I thought
Set your stop.
I'm going to.
There
was a red flag.
Got into data. That was long.
All right, well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I'll move on to the nutrition report. Positive.
You don't need to go through it, or it's pretty self-explanatory. We have a good balance. COVID has been good to us in that regard. One thing I will tell you is that it doesn't show you on here, but TASTE is participating in, one is called Local Farmers to Store, Local Farmers to School.
Yeah.
We did, and you would have seen something on, so there's two different ones that she's dealing with. One of them was $12,000. The other one, I'm gonna say, was like $8,000, I think, last year. So those will continue this year. I would imagine that they'll just grow, because your farmers, once they get wind that they can do this, they have to jump through some hoops, to make sure that it's proper food to be served here, but yeah. It's kind of a big deal for her, I thought.
Good.
You see if you remember last year, she was trying to get our breakfast meals up. You remember that, so, she's increased it by 8% or looks like about 1,300 maybe. And our lunches are up as well, not quite as far, but still. It still just blows my mind that we serve 70,000 meals. It's just crazy.
That does seem like a lot for a district, but
Just looking at that report, that line item under revenue, supply chain assistance and local food for schools, that would be.
Yeah,
those
that's what I.
grants that she, that's
I forgot I put that in.
over 36,000 last year.
Yep.
so.
how's that compare with, have we ever had that before, Julie, that particular line item?
No, this is new.
That's great.
Yeah, and so, I thought maybe, I would see a dip in maybe either commodities or our food, expenditures because of that. Because to show that you're spending $36,600 in food, you have to take it out of that food category and put it into another category. So they can see that you're spending it, right? So in theory, then under disbursements, that food that is 80,000, you would think in theory that would be less by $36,000, but it's not. It's, she just basically added more food to it. So, more fresh food, and,
So it can't be just.
no, and, selection, a bigger selection.
Yeah.
Of things, so.
Wouldn't just the general cost of food have an impact too? Just because everything costs more now.
Yeah, I mean, that food, it all seems pretty relative to what it was last year, so, yeah.
Yeah, she's done just a wonderful job of finding grants and starting fresh, healthy, farm to table stuff. And she'll send, sometimes they'll make like chef salads and they'll put them in like clear plastic thing. And they'll take a picture in the morning and send it out to say, hey, just so you know, chef salads today, and kind of market the stuff that they're making. It looks delicious, right?
I mean, we never used to get that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
And similar difference.
Yeah,
Mhm.
different things.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the nutrition report. We have a second? Favor to approve the nutrition report?
Aye.
Don't say no. Or it's been approved. On to Dr. Anderson. That's it.
I've shared a document with you all, if you want to reference it while I'm going over the information, just overview of the professional learning plan for this year. Starting with some of the goals that we have. And the first thing that we want to do is a systematic and systemic investigation of the elements of a new instructional framework that we have implemented. So last year was kind of here it is, and this year we'll get much more deep into those elements. We want to look at implementing structures that promote teacher retention. That's a big issue everywhere, but we want to specifically focus on what kinds of things that we can do to promote that here. We want to make sure that we have alignment between all the goals, individual growth goals, building goals, district goals. We want to increase those collaborative opportunities that promote excellence in teaching and, of course, always increase student achievement and success. So in doing that, we have underneath those goals is a schedule for this year. So we have the dates on the left, and those are our full day professional development learnings all day Monday. Or the first one is actually a Thursday and a Friday, because we'll be attending the Iowa Best Conference. That is a free conference that is put on by the Scanlon Mental Health Center at the University of Iowa. So I have put a link in there in case you want to look at more deeply what that is about. But the topic this year is creating a culture of caring. And we know that at Baxter, we already have, that's a strength of ours, but we also know that we had some data in the past in our conditions for learning with certain subgroups of students that has shown that we have room for improvement as well. So part of that is caring for students, so common mental health concerns, crisis response, and then of course, caring for our educators. How can we use that to promote teacher retention? And then finally, caring for the classrooms. As always, we want to promote a sense of belonging and have those big classroom management skills. So we'll spend 2 days there. And then with the whole staff going, and also the whole staff of Colfax Mingo is also attending as well. So those would be nice connections that we can have throughout the year with our neighbors. And so we're going to take what we learned from that and then decide kind of how that's going to play into the rest of the days throughout the school year. So we do have tentative plans for those. After Thanksgiving break, we'll be again looking at the instructional framework, and we'll be, it's TBD based on what we learned at Iowa Best. What we learn as a leadership team next Monday and Tuesday when we go to the Solution Tree Conference about coaching collaborative teams and help them become better. We'll include that work as well. January 3rd, we'll have just half the day for really professional learning, because we do want to make sure that teachers have the other half of the day to do the things they need to do for the end of the semester, which has been typical practice. January 22nd, we have a shared date with Colfax Mingo. So we hope that we can promote some collaboration. We also have the same on April 22nd. Oops, I'm sorry. It should be January 15th. January 15th and then April 22nd are both shared days. So we hope to have 1 day there and then 1 day here. And because they're also working on very similar things that we're doing, same instructional framework, same organizational framework. So have a lot of things in common. And then we have a day at things after spring break. And then the final day, we'll be looking at the instructional framework again, as well as trying to vertically align our standards that we have for. And at the bottom, the last thing I have is a chart that kind of shows, it's breaking it down a little bit further. So on those full days, what would a schedule actually look like? And so I just put some options there. We don't have to use all of them. They're just some examples of what might happen. So we start with a little bit of opening activity and overview of what's going on. We'd spend the morning hopefully doing things that are directly related to people's personal interests. We'd be doing rotations, stations, so it's not just they feel like it's sit and get all day. It's moving around. It's a lot of different types of learning. And then after lunch, buildings and teams and individuals would have choices on how to use that time, and that's going to be mostly planned by our building principals. So that's kind of the plan for the year. Is there anything that I can questions or
So
take
the
feedback as well?
best conference, I think, last month, we were talking about it. You're debating whether to have like certain or certain sessions they all go to, or is it more open for them to pick and choose what they want to dive into? Or
It's a great question. So they have not said exactly what each breakout session will be. So we don't know, but I'm assuming we want to give them as much choice as possible, but there might be certain sessions that we say that we're going to ask that they go to those. So I'm very anxious to see, because it's right around the corner. You'd think that they would have those determined. Maybe they do, they're just not posting them, but
I just put down the link, and I think there's like a schedule here.
there is,
That-
there's a strand, I guess you could call it, that is for higher education, and they had those sessions delineated a long time ago.
So we take buses or just everybody
We
drives
actually,
separately?
Wendy just sent an email out, so people could comment if they wanted to come here and ride together, or if they want to drive themselves. So we're giving people the option. If they want to drive themselves, they just meet there. And then we have talked, I didn't mean to jump in your presentation, but we talked about when it ends, we've worked with the Iowa Best people in charge of it to get us a room so that we can all meet together and debrief for an hour or so. And then people will take the bus home or drive home or whatever. But we just wanted to have time to then come together as a group. And I think maybe Colfax is gonna do that as well. But it just seemed like a good time to, since it's why it's just fresh in our heads right there on the Friday afternoon, let's just talk about it, jot down some things. And then we can, send everybody home for the weekend and then kind of talk about it again on Monday when we get back. When do you look for flex?
Well, because I stand corrected that Corey, it does look like they have the sessions listed, but,
Yeah, maybe didn't have to pick up when you register or something.
no,
No,
you just have to have a ticket.
Gotcha.
It's like, some of them might be available, so.
Reminds me of the
Put on there. And it was really just look, the bottom, it has a
Oh,
ten,
shows
it has a
no,
number. Yeah. That's what I was wondering, I mean. what if
Usually-
everybody's only one, they don't have room. Right,
Well,
well,
then
then
you
it says,
gotta be
what
complaining
is
about
that?
it.
I don't know. What does that mean?
I don't know, so this is just new,
Cause
like
they're
I would
all-
say within the last couple of days, because I typically check it at least once a week too.
And they tell you how many people have already signed up or whatever, or plan on doing it. Each session.
Sign up for six. So maybe that's kind of like,
It says limited capacity seats available.
look,
They all
if
say
it's all through the SCED app, how,
Mhm.
I think. Has IASB done the SCED app?
Mhm.
Okay, where you can pick what
Mhm.
sessions you want to go to and stuff.
There it says 2 attendees there. Maybe those the instructor.
Yeah.
Take a look, I mean, this is
Yes.
literally, this from somebody seeing the
Just
actual
out
session.
as soon as possible, yeah.
How does the Monday, the change in timing for PD to Monday seem to be going? I mean, it's not that different, but.
I think teachers really appreciate the autonomy to choose what they need at the moment, whether that's individual preparation or meeting with the team, and they can decide which teams to meet with. And we still have accountability measures in place this year from the leadership team to make sure that those teams are functioning effectively. But yeah, they
I think
have
we
much more
just
choice.
two, because we did well, we met as a K-12 staff and then Labor Day, so I think.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
feel like we've had many Mondays yet.
Right.
Also, okay, I was looking at this summit thing when I thought it was actually over in Iowa City, but it's in Des Moines. huh?
Yeah, it's in the mind.
Gotcha.
It's just.
That's easier.
University of Iowa.
Will we pay their religion parking?
We're offering a bus if they want to take a bus or van, whatever it is. Because we're gonna pay for the bus to drive there or the van or whatever, but if they choose to drive on their own, then they can. But we will pay those.
And lots of times, I think when we went to that other events there, they waived the parking fee for educators,
like-
but
Probably that or
Oh,
something,
yeah.
pays for that.
Yeah.
And this whole conference is no cost to the district.
Wow.
There's no entry fee, and usually things like this would be. At least $200 or $300 per person,
Mhm.
so it's no cost, so that's great. That was another reason we could afford to take everybody.
I think the opportunities too, like what Rob was just saying, meeting with some teachers from Colfax, Mingo to with some of those high school teachers especially to
Really
bounce some ideas off
excited
each
about
other.
those 2 days, for sure.
This is a unique thing, right? I mean, we have not usually ever done. or
We've
is there-
sent a couple of people, they've had it for 2 or 3 years now. I went maybe 2 years ago. Did you go last year? Cass?
I didn't, Amanda Hoffman. did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the first year that I went, it was a really good conference. I think maybe Travis and I went together. We just weren't sure what it was. And we were like, this is good. We need to make sure people get to this. And then I think Jason, actually, Mr. Aker was here at the time too. And I think as part of their ESO stuff,
Okay.
I think some of the elementary, did you go to that year? So
teacher.
as a few of us went. And then we're like, yeah, this is really, really good. And then, a couple other ones went last year. And then, we purposely planned, our calendar around this. And then also, those dates with Colfax Mingo, Wendy, knew the dates that they had full day PDs. So we purposefully planned a couple of our full day PDs to correspond with Colfax Mingos. Just because they're doing so much of the same work. I mean, they're working on power reliability schools and instructional framework and all those things. So it just makes sense, like Rob said, to, we have two chemistry teachers talking about chemistry together. It just makes sense.
What are their normal PD days, Wendy, go back to me those
They also do
Monday?
full day Mondays, but a few of them are just different times. So their November one is the very first Monday, as opposed to ours is the last Monday.
Mhm.
But similar dates.
Assume best stands for something when you.
It does,
but-
but I don't remember what that is.
Speak your best.
Oh, behavioral, equitable, sociable, and emotional trauma, and what we call these schools.
That's
Seems
a lot
like
of-
a lot of things are just best.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah, maybe at the next meeting, we could hear from teachers on their feedback on it. It's early enough in the year that. Hopefully they'll be excited and not like, oh my gosh, I'm totally. Maybe they'll be happy to not have kids.
Good idea.
I heard that exact same thing from our lit teacher today at 3:05. Was not excited about it and now is extremely excited about those 2 days. So there's one piece of feedback.
Might depend on the day.
Tomorrow, we wish we. Today was, I am excited to go for those 2 days.
It says the second year for the Marzano framework there.
Yeah, and last year was mainly a time for our district leadership team to explore it themselves and have a real deep understanding. So we spent time and then it was just kind of bits and pieces here and there. And then this year we'll make sure that everyone has understands all the elements and.
Thank you. For bringing this together. Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Very good stuff. So we can move on to the 2080 agreement.
This is just a formality, really. We've been sharing this and we just hadn't actually got the document back from them. So we finally got it back. It's been approved by GMG, so we just need to have you guys officially approve it as well. This puts money back into our pocket because we get 4 FTEs for it, so roughly $28,000. And we pay them with it. And so we keep about half of it. So it's a benefit for us.
They hold the contract.
And this is for Kim's time.
Kim's time. She helps us with work policy things. I mean, anything I ask her, she helps with, but the big thing she's.
So we like 20%.
Yeah, it's like 1 day a week roughly. And then in exchange, I do this especially with that. I don't go like every week, but usually a couple of times a month anyway, I get over to GMG. And we email back and forth, like if I get some information about special ed, I send it on to their 2 other principals. So it works out pretty well for both of us.
Take a motion to approve the 2080 agreement. GMG. We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same going. 2080 agreement has been approved. Move on to the approved request for allowable growth Supplemental for special education deficit.
Yeah, so we need to approve, it's $45,290.34, for, the special ed deficit. And that's just due to some expenses. I mean, your hands are tied. Then you have kids in your district who just have to provide what they need. And so, you know, we've had to just, like they were just saying, they're still looking for some paras. And, like Zach said, we've got some pretty dynamic kindergartners that have joined us. And, like, we had a good conversation today. Our demographic is changing. It's, we're just getting more kids with more severe needs than we've had in a while. It just costs a lot of money to support them. So. I mean, we try our best to be as efficient as possible.
I think, so this is an actual money in our pockets that we're getting, so kind
No.
of raising that.
We're just asking to expand our credit card ability. I've asked the principals to visit with their special ed teachers to bring the Medicaid option to the forefront of their special ed students and their parents. There's, in the past, there's been a bit of a stigma, I guess, to being on Medicaid. In that sense, in this environment, though, there should be no stigma. It's not attached to any income guidelines or anything like that. It basically just helps us provide all the additional care above the 1.0 that we need to give them. So special ed teachers, when they have their annual IEP meetings, and that they just need to have those conversations with those parents. If the parents don't sign off on it, then we can't submit it to Medicaid.
Is that some teacher could probably try to explain it, but I don't know if they.
Yeah, we can't like force them.
Right,
to
but
do it,
it-
but yeah, I think the stigma part is like, if you can explain it to them, it's not anything related to income. It's just based on when we have this diagnosis code for your child, then we can go Medicaid to help pay for the paraprofessional. But without the permission.
That's nice where, like, you know, if the teachers are able to explain that well enough, or maybe you should send like just an email to them and say, this is the process, this is what it's used for.
So so I brought Medicaid to the school before I started here. We didn't even the people before me thought it was too much work. And in my opinion, it was worth it because it's just money that we're not getting, leaving on the table. So Anna, Travis, and I went to the Medicaid training together. So Anna's very fluent in it. And for the most part, it was in the elementary levels where our Medicaid students were. Well, now they've transferred up into the secondary levels, and we've got new teachers there in that area that I don't think are very versed on it. So it may be one of those times when Anna maybe just needs to have a little teaching session with the other special ed teachers too, you know.
And we have
To explain to
to
them.
consultants too, so we can get them help.
And we actually, if you remember, we have a third party that we contract with to help with our billing. So when I will upload all of the hours and all that stuff, and then this third party company will look at all of my hours to make sure that I have it all correct. They'll come out and do an audit of our paperwork because those Medicaid students have to be accounted for every single minute. And so it all has to be documented every single minute, you know. So if the IEP says that they have a 1-to-1 for 420 minutes a day, then we need to document if they have 1-to-1 and what their progress is during those minutes. And it has to be in a certain outline and certain form. The psychologist has to sign off on it. I mean, there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but in my opinion, it's well worth it. So
And once you get the form up and going, it's not.
yeah, we template it, you
It's
know,
not
every
as
student is a little bit
huge, yeah,
different,
like,
but we template it as much as we
going.
can. And then we would have, them come out like once a year and sit with our paras and train our paras on how to do all that. So they can sure come out and talk with our special ed
Yeah,
teachers.
and I'm sure we can probably get, is it from me?
Yeah.
We could probably contact them and get them to come.
Yeah, and they'll
sometime
come for
soon.
free.
Yeah.
But
just talk with
It's
them.
just, it's the
Yeah.
conversation that the teacher needs to have with their parents. That's the hard part of it.
That's what I'm thinking, if the teacher doesn't feel comfortable with that,
Right.
if
Yeah, I could sit with them. If I knew that they were having an IEP meeting or something, had a kiddo that
Yep.
potentially qualified. Yeah, we just have to get the stigma out of it.
Yep.
It's not at all based on income. It's based on need.
So Medicaid in school does not equal Medicaid at home.
Right,
No.
right. Like,
Yeah.
like our little granddaughter will qualify for Medicaid because of her full birth weight and her parents are not. Low
first
income. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, that first year, so. Just because she was born under, I don't know what, under 2 pounds, whatever the limit is, so she qualifies. There's just qualification categories and
Okay.
these kiddos will qualify, and so then we can bill Medicaid for this, the cost of their paraprofessional.
Okay.
We had 3 that we built for. Normally we have about 6. We had about 6, so we lost 3 last year. So 3 last year brought in about $40,000.
So at what point in the year do we identify or figure out?
You do it during the
During our
IEP meeting, and it has to be redone every year. And so the IEP meetings are done on an annual basis. So that's really the best time to get it done. And then their medical diagnosis has to be reevaluated every year as well. So our nurse will, on an annual basis, contact their doctor and make sure that the diagnosis codes are still the same, or because you have to plug in all that stuff when you're building.
Okay.
But it's working.
questions.
They have to read it exactly as. We have to upload this to the.
Yeah, but it's just,
Please
it's
upload
fine.
it.
It's
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the allowable growth supplement A for the 22-23 school year. We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
All right,
Say no. Motion approved.
We should take a moment.
Okay.
John Northrop,
yes.
Colette Campbell, yes. Kim Tiki,
Yes.
Cory Rhodes.
Yes. Just to say Debbie.
I had to, Rob didn't look like Debbie.
I think she'd appreciate it.
A lot.
So she threw me out of my loop.
Move on to the approval of district law firm.
Okay, this is just routine. We use Allers and Cooney. They represent lots of districts in the state. They're very good.
We have a motion to approve all Taylor and Cooney law firm. Second. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Say no. Law firm has been approved.
How often does our, sorry, just a question, but not, how often does our person change that? Do we always,
No,
is that
it
change
depends.
frequently? or-
I think on the thing you're working on too, though. Like if it's
Okay.
real estate, you've got a person. Like we used to
Yeah.
have Drew Bracken
Yeah.
and he retired.
Okay,
And so now it's like, my go-to is Miriam.
Yeah.
And her last name's.
Long last name.
Yeah. But then if we're doing something with like bonds or something, there's somebody within their firm who's kind of an expert in that. Miriam's an expert in special education. And so
okay.
they kind of all have their niche, but
Mhm.
like she's kind of our go-to.
Yeah.
person.
On the annual city school collaboration, 5,000.
So just so you know, this was like an oversight. I saw that on there and I didn't even read the little paragraph. And then Corey pointed out, I was like, I thought we did that last year. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, we did. So I did contact Bryce though, because I looked over and I was like, we approved the parking lot, but I don't see a parking lot. But so I talked to Bryce Halter yesterday and he said what their plan is they're still finishing things with the shelter house. So they don't want to put it down until all the trucks and stuff are done. So once the trucks are done with the shelter house, they'll lay the gravel rock stuff, and then they'll let it sit, and then in the spring, they'll do the spray coat or what?
Steel coat.
Seal coat. So that's still the plan. So I was like, okay, well, I just wanted to figure out where exactly we were. And then, the mayor is actually out of town this week. So, I said, do you guys still intend to work on another project? Because we typically, approve the $5,000 pending, they approve $5,000, and I haven't heard back from them yet. So we could approve ours pending approval of theirs. And then I said, if you guys have a project in mind, let us know if it's still something over at Casey Park. That seems like a really good project, good location for us. But I just haven't heard back from them yet. So.
Yes, this 5,000 we would be approving would be for something in the future, right?
Right.
Last
We've
year.
already done the parking lot.
Yeah, we just normally do a 5,000 every year for some sort of a,
But we had, what, 20,000 or so sitting, because they hadn't approved anything for a while, and then they had some money for the parking lot, so I think together we put in $40,000 to get that parking lot going.
Will that be used by staff, students, or just?
Yes, the plan was that during like the school day and during like sporting events, people could park over there, but then in the summer, if they're having a concert at the park or something, then they could use it, and then they could use our parking lot too, so we could just both share both parking lots.
just as a side note, I'm not sure that you all know, but the Education Foundation, as part of that, Milligan's had a swimming pool fund in there, and they had they reallocated $30,000 towards the shelter house. So we just recently paid for that from the Education Foundation, the Milligan's portion of it. They wanted it to go there, so.
It looks nice. I haven't been back in there, but just from the road, it looks really nice.
So rather than the splash pad or whatever, there's still plenty to do the splash pad. This was just one of that. When they called the people and asked, "Do you mind if you need to use that?" Yes. Yeah.
We're doing 5,000.
I'd make a motion to approve the 5,000. With the stipulation that the city must match that 5,000 out of their budget.
Second for that.
Second.
In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Say no. The 5,000 based on the city mentioned. That. To an update on district enrollment.
And this is not the official enrollment. We know that count day is October 1st. So I just talked to our elementary secretary and our secondary secretary and just said, can you just tell me how many kids we have? So it's just, this isn't open enrollment in or out. It's just how many kids are in seats in our building. And so, if you look, I almost feel like the top link there, the spreadsheet's a little easier to follow. So, I just laid out our numbers, like in kindergarten, we have 30, preschool, we have 32, and just remember, preschoolers count as a half. So when we count them up, they'll count as 16 students, and just all the way down. So when you add them all up, we've got 458 kids K-12 and 490 pre-K-12, but then counting the preschoolers as half, we're at 474. So that puts us up roughly 6 kids from last year. And I was just at a conference superintendent meeting yesterday. And there's schools in our conference who are down as many as 12 kids. Yeah, and there's a lot of them are in a similar boat to us, up 1 or 2. Ironically, a couple of the schools in our district or in our conference, that a couple of private schools are up like 40 kids each. Yeah. I mean, who knows why? We don't know for sure why, but we do know that they're up enrollment like 40 kids each. there's more than 2 private schools in our conference. And just 2 of them that happened to be there yesterday. They were both up about 40. Each. So, that's interesting, but I mean, good for them, but good for us that we're up 6. We're not down 6, we're not down 12, we're not down 40, so. It's just, you know, I'm glad to have the numbers here so we can see exactly how many are in each grade. Because, you know, I like that we have the 43 seniors, but you know, they move out. We're replacing them with right now 32 preschoolers, but it seems though we always seem to get more, but
Especially if Amanda brings us open enrollments to kindergarten, we're proud of it.
yeah, she does.
She does.
She does. She's like hassling or like hustling those kids in here. So anyway, I mean, our enrollment's nothing to be like overly concerned about, but it's definitely something we need to watch, and we always need to keep an eye on that number because we know that that is what all of our funding comes from. It's based on our kiddos.
So I was just kind of doing a quick look. There's only maybe 2 grades that we actually lost a student. You know, like one here, one, if you go from 22 to 23, you know,
Oh, yeah.
second to third, went from 37 to 36. Or first and second, we lost one. So basically we only lost 2 kids. So we just kind of gained 8. So it's not bad.
Gwen's class has grown since, I don't know, I think it was maybe 5th grade when they were like 21 kids in that class.
Oh, I see that little space. I mean, it is nice to see a couple of, like Rob was saying, the 40s. You've got 43 6th graders, 42 8th graders.
Put them
Yeah.
threads. What?
Good.
Possibly ask a quick question here, based on an article that was in the Newton paper yesterday, a long article in the Newton paper yesterday. But the parents at a school board meeting were complaining about the bullying in the school and that Newton is losing a lot of students as a result of it. Do you get anything when people are applying? Because I know we do have some Newton students coming in here.
I don't know that any of them have marked obsessive
Yeah,
bullying or.
They never
excessive-
mark it that it's a formal complaint because you have to go through that process, right? But it seems like there's a lot that tell us that that's the reasoning, but there's no
Are you feeling
documentation for
better
it.
here then?
Excuse me?
They're feeling better
Yes,
here?
I mean, they seem to be. I mean, these 3 kiddos that we're gonna approve tonight are all from Newton. But I mean, I'm not saying they were bullied or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
understand.
they're just all 3 good kids. Coming here, so.
Thank you.
Let's go to the, let's see the official numbers.
Yeah, so stay tuned.
Everybody's healthy that day.
Yeah. And I put just kind of on the actual, that other sheet before the spreadsheet one, just some past enrollment, and we didn't really start calculating those kindergarten numbers till a couple years ago. And so this is just kind of something that it's just kind of interesting, but it's not like our formal count. But it's always like fun to just see, okay, where we are. It's just nice to get a ballpark number. So we'll just continue to update that year to year. Just keep putting it in the notes.
We'll put together some budget overview from the last 5 years. We're Inquired about before.
Yep, you want me to go through it with you?
Yeah, sure.
So a few of you asked, actually, I think I presented this original document to you probably January of last year to give you an idea of how much our utilities had increased. And, then recently, a few of you asked for more and a little more detailed information on our expenditures. So, and just recently, our 22-23 numbers have been certified. So I was able to grab those numbers. Those numbers might change minorly, but I don't expect them to change. Like, if the DE does their, audit, they find something's a little wonky or something, they may contact me, but it's rare that those would change, so. So our total expenditures, this is basically, all of our expenditures, and as we know that salaries and benefits make up between 75 and 85% of all of our expenditures. And you can see that, we're right at 83%. So when you're at 83%, that basically leaves you, 16%, 17% of discretionary funds in theory that you can adjust or not. Well, 3% of those funds are utilities that we have no control over. And those utilities, just those three utilities, electricity, water, and gas, has increased 41%. And like the gas has went up 43% just itself, but those three overall is 41% over the last 5 years. And I can tell you that mostly once COVID hit, everything just skyrocketed. And it's my understanding that they're never going to go back to where they were. It's just going to build from here. So of that 83%, 63% of the salaries and benefits are certified staff and 37% are classified staff. So your certified staff are teachers and the nurse, and the classified staff is everyone else except for cooks, because cooks come out of the nutrition fund. So the classified staff are your administration, your paras, your custodians, your bus drivers. I think I got everybody there. And they make up 37%. Your discretionary, so then that leaves your discretionary, right? So that's about all that we can adjust. If our salaries and benefits are basically dictated by the new monies that come in, all we have left to adjust is discretionary. And when you're talking about 168,000 change in 5 years, there's not a whole lot of places you can move there. And the discretionary is where it hits your students the most. It's your instructional supplies, it's your curriculum, your, that kind of thing. So, yeah, this is what it is.
The other thing that would have been interesting too is the insurance and how much is this going up?
Yes, it's just ungodly.
Which is. What category does that fall into?
That'll be in benefits. That's in your benefits. Yeah. Yeah. And I can do another analysis on benefits over the last, it's just, it's ungodly, it's, for at least the last 7 years, according to our insurance providers, we've been using 125% of our premiums, which is why they continue to go up each year, because we just continue to use more than we're paying. I think the days of getting a 0% increase are long gone.
I think this kind of provides a good backdrop as to kind of why we had to raise our taxes. You hear that from a few people out in the public, and it's like our costs gone up just like everybody else's have. So
it is, and I feel like when you think back. So I've been here 15 years. So when I came on, our tax rates were at $20 per thousand, and I was instructed to keep them at $20 per thousand. We've changed that philosophy over the years and lowered it whenever we could. There was a couple of years in there ahead of the building project that we paid off our loans early, or our bonds early, which saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest, which kudos to us, that we saw that benefit and took it. But we probably waited a little too long before we raised the taxes, because we don't want to do it. It affects me too. It affects all of you too, and you don't want to have to do it.
I think one of the reasons we tried to pay it off early is to keep that tax rate. So when the new bond came in, we were kind of double.
Yes, for sure.
Wait.
Yeah. Yep.
Probably higher than what we would have been, what we are now.
Yes, because then we would have still had existing bonds, 20-year bonds, that we didn't have paid off, and then we're adding on top of that, and it just, that was not something that I felt okay with, so I, focused on getting some of that principal paid down in time, and it worked out just perfectly, I feel like, the old
I
ones
think-
came off just as the new ones went on.
Any
So,
normal person would do that, want
Yes.
to get rid of that, get that paid off, why pay interest and.
for sure, when you think about your house loan or your car loan, you don't want to pay more interest than you have to.
But at the same time, we gotta think about how do we keep the tax rates the same and.
Yep.
And we did,
Yep.
so.
Yeah, you see at the bottom,
Right.
it's listed there for the last 5 years, the tax rate. It's either stayed the same or gone down every year for the last 5 years.
And like I said, 10 years or 11 years ago, we were around $20.
So it's
So we've been able
$3
to get it down,
and a half anyway,
Yeah.
less per thousand.
This is really good. Jen.
And the other thing I guess I think about too is that in the salaries and benefits, I mean, with COVID money, we hired a couple additional staff members, so guidance in that for the students, which we thought was best. It probably is the best. But we had COVID money to pay for that for a
That's
couple
exactly
years, and then now that's fallen out, so we have to kind of pick that up, so there
That's
goes our
exactly-
salaries and benefits
Yeah.
expense. Part of it's gone up because of that, and part of it because of raises we've given the staff over time.
That's exactly right. So in general, that 83% is usually around 76, 77%. But because of COVID, we received over, 3 years, about 425,000, I think it was. And our students were struggling, and so we brought on more counselors. We brought on, a couple of different positions to help in those areas, but those COVID monies paid for them, right? Well, now the COVID monies are gonna go away, and do you wanna take away those extra supports that your students need? We strategically, hired those positions, knowing that we have this COVID money, but then we knew that we needed to increase by X number of students in order to sustain those positions, and we've done that. So we can sustain those positions, but then you have to think of everything else that keeps going up, your cost of living and just, I mean, in general, I always increase our expenditures by 3%, but I mean, when it jumps 41% in 5 years, that's more than 3% a year, so it's, there's only a small piece of the pie that we can maneuver. Everything else is basically decided for us.
Yeah, I think it really hopefully kind of helps explain it to the public. If we
So you look at that discretionary.
got a document we can show.
Yeah,
we can for sure.
Here's where we're at.
For sure.
That discretionary line, there's a few years now, it was way high. Kind of,
Yes, and you see, that's like in our COVID years, so we had, remember all the masks
So many
Yeah.
times.
and all the cleaning supplies and, oh my gosh, yeah, I mean,
$300,000 there,
yeah,
just in that extra stuff,
yeah,
200.
yeah.
This might be a good document to just keep in the board, when we do the work session too.
For sure, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, because you could actually, if you actually look at it, look when COVID hit, our utilities went down. It just, it's, I mean, you can just see when it hit, and then the next year, everything just spikes back up again.
I guess thinking back to talking about the bond issue again, I mean, the tax rates this year had nothing to do with our bond.
No,
No,
Because that's stayed the stat.
yeah, we've been paying on our bonds for, actually, we almost have one of them already paid off, so. 5 years.
This is what's the driving the taxes.
right. Yeah.
Good info. Any other questions over those? Thanks, Julie, for.
Sure.
Move on to open enrollment.
All right, we have, Brittany. Her son Braxton, kindergarten. And these kiddos, several, they're here already. This is just, right,
Yes. Yep.
these, yeah, they're just have more of your information now, because we didn't want these kids to not be able to start school when it was time for school to start. So Brittany for her son Braxton from Newton, and then Danielle Bauer for her daughter. Greenberry. From Newton, second grade from Newton, and then Jen Winchell for her daughter Kaylee, 10th grade from Newton. And they're all just Gen Ed, Gen Ed kids.
Need to,
Yes, we have a motion to approve the 3 open enrollments.
So.
You have a second? Favor say aye.
Aye.
Let's see, no. All hands have been approved. Personnel,
So we have resignation from Dane Buckland as middle school basketball coach. Is that girls?
Girls.
Girls, that's right. Renew all together or just
Resignation
separate? Okay. Resignation separate.
I have a motion to approve the resignation of Dana Buckland as basketball coach. Second. Say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Resignation has been approved.
And then approve a contract for Andrea Berg as the student council, high school student council sponsor, Kyle Tesling, assistant boys wrestling coach, and Cassie Shanks and Stacia Van Sice as co-junior class sponsors.
They could like split.
They
the-
split it, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the contracts as presented.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Let's see, no. Contracts are approved. On the board policies.
We've got a couple links there. The first link is just a link to our board policy manual, and that's linked to our website. And then the second is just a list of a whole bunch of updates. Mrs. Stein and I were not quite on the same page with everything. So these are all the ones for the last year and this year that are updated. So there are some of them aren't in the 100 to 300s, but this is, you can look through these whenever. But then you'll know that then we'll be completely current with everything. So then, but there was just a new policy that came out yesterday from the Department of Education. And I was on a superintendent Zoom this morning, and IASB said to sit on it for a minute. They'll take a look at it and put it into the policy format that we use. So I'll bring that to you next month, but it's regarding student threats and student discipline, and it's procedures that the Department of Ed is saying this is what they'll use.
so to be required.
Yeah, so, but it just came out yesterday, and there's really hasn't even been time to sort through it all yet, so I didn't even link it in. So if you click on these, any of them, like just, we'll say 406.1, just that first one. You'll just see, like, I tried to highlight in yellow if something was different, or in something, in some color, you'll see that it's highlighted a little bit, so you'll be able to see what the changes are. But in our policies, I always try and make them as general as possible, so that we can pigeonhole ourselves unless we're needed to. So I put in anything that was a required policy change. I put those in, but otherwise it's just minor things. Like the number 603.6 objection to instructional materials. You know, we already had that policy and we already talked through it all. So there was one little thing you had to change because the policy used to have a student on the committee, reconsideration committee, and now that's not allowed. So we just, deleted the student part out of it. But there's quite a few on here, so I don't know if you want to take a look at them, or maybe you already did take a look at them. But they're linked also then to our board policy manual. And so once we approve them all, then Kim Stein and Julie and I will go through and make sure everything is like cleaned up and not highlighted. It's what it looks on the website. It looks nice when people click on it.
On that 503.7, the disclosure of identity, is that a brand new one? Because I didn't see it on there before.
Yeah, so that's one of those new laws.
Right.
And so just kind of in a nutshell, with that one, if a student says, I want to go by a different pronoun, we have to contact parents.
I get that, but then it also says that goes for nicknames too.
Yeah, so with that.
What are they saying?
So what I've talked with our congressman, that represents us. And he just wanted to know where we were at with it. And so what I said to him is, we're gonna go with common sense nicknames. And he said, that's exactly the intent of the law. He said, like, if I use the example, my son's name is William. He's always gone by Will. Teachers call him Will. We all call him Will. I'm not gonna make our staff fill out a form to get permission to call him Will. If Will wants to go by Julie, that's an issue, that's a different story, and we will contact parents. We need to fill out paperwork and get permission from that. And I said, that's our take on it. Is that what you were thinking? And he said, yes, absolutely. That was the intent of the law. So he said, there's some people who are going like the opposite extreme, saying everything. If your name is really Julia and you go by Julie, we're filling out a form. And that's just, we're not doing that.
That's why I'm asking.
Right,
It
yeah,
seemed very general. I mean, is that anybody?
And so from what I've been told by our congressman, we are perfectly in line with the law. I think you can take it one way or the other, but I just said, we're not gonna try and get in the middle of this. We'll just try and use common sense. And he said, yes. So that's my take on it. Unless you guys direct me different.
A common short name, or I don't know how to say would be.
Right. I was supposed to see it in there, but I mean, I get the point of it, what they're trying to do, but. You all feel comfortable, in theory, this should be the second reading of these. Do you all feel comfortable with that, or do you feel like you wanna go through them?
Either
Or
way,
another month?
we could always approve of next month also, or if you want to do it now, it doesn't matter.
It's your call, I just, whatever you want to
Well,
do.
we've done the hundreds and 300s, right?
Yes, hundreds through
Yeah,
300s.
It's just
That's what we're
like these
on.
new ones maybe, or.
Yeah.
Few of them, but probably all of them.
So we could just approve all of them next month, or approve the 100s to 300s this month, and then anything outside of that scope, you could approve next month. It doesn't matter.
I think maybe just the 100s to 300s.
You feel comfortable with?
Okay, and then if you have time, just take a look at those, if you have any questions.
Yeah, so we'll put the others on the meeting for next.
And then we should go do back and say,
Really kind of organized.
right. That's where we kind of get out of the same thing, they add the other. They wanted to change. from-
Yeah, maybe annual thing, if they come up new ones, we just,
So the
if we're
fall
doing next year, we're doing 400 to 600s.
and the new ones, yeah.
That's usually how we'll go. Even if we didn't catch them when they first came out. There's a law that we have to review them when we review them, so even if we didn't catch it when they come out, we're gonna catch them in time if they come out again, you know what I mean? Or when we get back to that cycle. Yeah.
There's just some things that have been so like hot topics.
Yeah.
That if we can get them on there.
They're
here,
for sure.
on there
For
fresh.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, just get them on there. And so then next month, I'll probably be able to bring you the one that just came out yesterday too.
Yeah.
We can get that out.
So we'll just have a motion to approve the 100s, 300s policies. Motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second, aye.
Let's see, no. 100 to 300 policies have been approved. Well, it's facilities, grounds and transportation.
I feel like I should have put like a link to our pictures in there. Because, so Colette and Dawn and I did walk around with Bill and looked at all the stuff, and we were like literally climbed up on the roof. It was crazy. I'd never been up there before. And Colette and I were like, this is a gorgeous view. Really. So I did. I sent it to my kids and they're like, are you on the roof? Like, yeah, I hope you've never been up here.
That would be familiar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's nice up there. It's like we should have some kind of. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's where our key room should be.
Yeah, that's what we said.
Do fundraising.
Look at that.
Fix that.
That there's funds and great shape in no time. We'll have this rooftop. I mean, it was beautiful up there. It really was. We're like, you have to put some railings or
Yeah,
something, but
the patio one.
Yeah.
Maybe better stairs.
yeah. And I was wearing a dress because I did not intend that we were actually going up on the roof. So I was like, well, I'll go last. So I was climbing up there on a dress.
It's like a.
It's like a straight up ladder.
It's like at the fire.
Like a fire. Yeah, so we had like.
Is it from that you actually?
Yeah, so.
Not that we're telling you.
Yeah, right. Oh, shoot. Well, typically that door's locked, so we had to unlock it to get up there. So we walked around and we looked at everything on the list, and you two just jump in too. But pretty much what we decided was there was a few things that were really bad that needed repaired, but some things that were just a bit cosmetic. We just decided, we're not replacing that. We're just gonna take the cash out for that. Like, for example, there was some little bit of dents on the back side of the softball press box that like faces Trent's Field. Like, no one's ever gonna see that. And it didn't seem worth, I can't remember what the cost of it was to replace that, but it was like not cheap, like 1,000 or.
I think it's like $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah, and we're like,
And
you can something like
you have to go up
to,
to
like,
like, you know.
feel it, like it
Yeah.
didn't just, so things that you could just barely see. No, we're not gonna replace that. So, we, used Bill's advice and John and Colette, and we just all walked around, and so we put together a pretty good plan. Of what we're gonna get replaced, and so as long as you guys are fine with just taking their recommendations.
The biggest thing I think was we're basically all the garage doors we were gonna get replaced, because that was on some of the bus barn ones are pretty old, and it's like, hey, this is a big
Yeah,
opportunity to get those
yeah.
done. The steel on the north side of the multi-purpose building, that new building, we're gonna, since it's a pretty new building, and it is kind of pretty visible, so we're gonna replace the steel on that along with the garage. I don't know if Bill, we found dents on the north side of the bus barn, which they didn't have on the insurance. And it's like, he was gonna try to see if they would cover
Yeah.
that.
Well, everything else is on the north side, you know.
Yeah.
So you think they maybe just
Um,
missed.
The thing I was disappointed in is all the roofs on the steel buildings. I guess our insurance, and they have the clause in there, they just considered it cosmetic damage and they weren't gonna cover it. I guess, I don't know, you can't see it from ground level or whatever, where it's like the sidewalls on the buildings, you can see from ground level, so.
Interesting.
So that, they didn't have the skylights in the middle school commons on that, but Bill had I guess the company that I think installed them. Good on them, they come out and inspect because they knew we had hail, and it's like, yeah, you got big time damage. They estimated, I think it was $60,000 on that, so. And that was the deal that I guess there's 3 layers of glass, and like the top layer was cracked, and that they said you're gonna get water coming through, and it'd be a bad deal, so. Gotta get that done. Trying to think, that was about,
Yeah, there was.
yeah.
Wasn't there some things like on the parapet, like up
Yeah.
here, that you decided you weren't gonna?
Yeah, on the trim on
You
it.
couldn't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
see,
Yeah, that-
You can't see it from the
Yeah.
ground really,
Yeah.
so.
so some of that we decided to just use that money to fix, like that one garage door,
On the ag,
on the ag building, that wasn't damaged, but it was old and rickety. So we're just gonna use some of the money that we're not replacing, some of the other things to be able to replace things that really do need replaced. So we thought that was a better use of the money.
What's the timing to get some of those projects going? Is it,
It
if
seemed
that
like-
one thing is like a leak?
Yeah, I don't know, Bill's gonna get
They said-
bids on like
Yeah.
the garage doors and that.
That's like, it didn't leak yesterday with the rain, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure we would have heard about it, so
Yeah.
I didn't hear about it.
That's what I'm concerned about the roofs is. They did the same thing on our building out there at our farm, like, oh, it's all cosmetic. Well, we got rain a couple weeks later. Puddles of water. So it's like, it's more than cosmetic, so I don't, hopefully,
And there was like on the roof on here, the rolled roofing and whatever, they did find leaks in that, they covered that, but it was more, I guess, the steel buildings or whatever. And I think, you know, if we do find a leak or whatever, and we can say it was from hail, that they have to cover it.
How long do you have on the claim? Is it a year or?
We had over a year when it was the derecho.
Yeah.
We had over a year, because I was concerned that we weren't gonna get everything all taken care of in my niece. So I feel like it's maybe 18 months.
We have some time, but we do want to get it done,
Yeah.
so.
No, I was just thinking if some of those things kind of show up later. If it. Maybe is more of an issue than they initially. thought. If it's still using it.
walking around and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was interesting. So do we need to approve anything or do we just so you know, we're gonna go ahead with that stuff?
We're on the BCSD equity plan.
I didn't really change much of anything. And the only thing I did go through it and there was some board policies that were listed in here. So I just went ahead and like hyperlinked them to our board policy manual. So now as things change, if a policy changes, then our equity plan will automatically update to match with it. But otherwise, there was no changes. I mean, we did go through and count up like our staff and calculate the percentages of male and female and different ethnicities and stuff, but otherwise, it's just the same equity plan we've always had.
Rob's still the office.
And he's still the equity coordinator for one more year. He'll probably just want to
7
go
more
back
months.
and do that, yeah.
You can probably come back into it then.
Right. Sleep on that.
Like a gig for you?
Roll myself on everybody.
It's great.
Let's negotiate.
Yeah. But you saw our budget, so.
I'm out.
So I think you just have to approve it.
So we have a motion to approve the equity plan. Second,
Second.
Kurt, say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Yes, the equity plan's been approved. Superintendent's report.
So Rob touched on it, but it was really a pretty cool thing we had on Monday. A couple weeks ago, a couple professors from Iowa State reached out and said that they had heard some really great things about Baxter. And they had some visiting professors coming from the University of Namibia. And they wanted to see a high functioning rural school. And they heard some really good things about us. So I was like, yes, that's fantastic. Yeah, sure, you can come. And so,
Right.
oh yeah, I have some pictures. I should have linked them in, but I'll put them on our Facebook too. I wasn't even thinking, because we were just visiting and stuff. I didn't take very many. Wendy took a couple for me, and I don't know if Rob and Zach, if you took any as you were walking around. I just took a couple. Yeah, so, and they were just delightful to meet with and to just hear, they wanted to hear our story and what, what Baxter's about and what we're doing and how we're getting, kids to stay in school and, it's just interesting to walk around with them and the things that they were most intrigued. I mean, they thought our building was just beautiful. So that was really nice. They were really impressed with our whiteboards, which was just crazy to me. But I mean, they were like, but no, literally, when you think rural, like this isn't rural. Like we have teachers still carrying buckets of water into the school. And we were like, holy smokes, like that is rural. And so They were just talking about how the different classes they have, and so they wanted to just hear what we were doing, and so, and Dr. Anderson was there, and Zach and Rob and Bree, and Dennis, our instructional coaches, and I. And, we just visited, and then we took them into the classrooms, and they just kind of saw things and watched what was going on, and they were just delightful. They invited us to come to Africa, and like, sure, they said like a 30-hour flight. I'm like, you bet, that sounds wonderful. But anyway, they were very complimentary of our school, and we gave them some like bolt stickers to take back, some swag, and they took those, you know, those flyers we have, and they were just loving those, asking questions, and so I think we left them, I hope, with a really good impression of Baxter, and I thought it never hurts to leave a good impression with Iowa State. And then one of the gals that was sitting right here, she is in charge of student teacher placement, and we were like, and we are always looking for teachers. So they have an overabundance of teachers, and we were like, well, send them our way. Because they said. No, Africa. Does not, no. Africa has an overabundance of teachers. And they wondered questions like, do our teachers bring their kids here? And we said, actually, we have quite a few that do. And you know, some of our teachers don't live here, but you know, so they're, but yeah, they bring their kids. And they were saying one of their problems is they have teachers that will come to their school, but even they'll send their kids somewhere else. They send their kids to the urban school because it's just more about, yeah. And so they're trying to combat that. And they have a lot of questions about athletics because they don't offer that as part of their school. And we said that's a way that we really connect with kids and we can keep kids engaged. And then they started thinking like, oh, you know, just ideas of maybe that's something we need to think about. And you guys jump in if there's things I'm not remembering. And there was something else that they were really intrigued that we pay our coaches. Their coaches are just like more like Baxter Rec. And so they don't really have that as part of a thing.
Sports for them.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, it was really, really interesting to visit with them. And so there was 2 Iowa State professors, and then was it 5 Namibia, one lady, and 4 guys. And one was actually, he was a professor, but he was also a graduate student at Iowa State. So he, you know, a little bit was familiar with Ames. And they were going to visit Baxter, and then they were going to visit a couple other schools in Iowa in the next couple days. And then they were going to go to some classes at Iowa State. And then they're going to the game on Saturday. So they're like, stop at our tailgate. Anyway, it was just a really cool thing. And it was really nice to be, I mean, they could have went anywhere and they chose us. So that was, I thought, really cool.
So is that all, do you think, Rob, based on some of the networking at Iowa State with, like, isn't there a teacher's fair that you
The
gone to?
career fair we go
Yeah,
to.
career fair. Yeah.
And I was familiar with like one of the professors.
Oh, nice.
And so she reached out to and said, is this something you'd be willing? I was like, yes, of course, we'd love to host you.
Great.
But it's just nice to have connections, like Rob knows lots of people, Zach knows people, and I know, starting to know a few professors here and there. So the more people we can get connected with, the more we can get.
I picked her brain pretty hard, Iowa State, about what their ed teacher prep programs, and they got just hammered by COVID. So it's not better right now, but it will be getting better from Iowa State's standpoint. So their junior seniors are minimal, but they're getting people back in the programs to pre-COVID time.
So a couple of years out.
And we, you know, I think there's a way in our state to use student teachers more than we do. I mean, they really handcuff them to just kind of learn. I mean, I think you could use them for real world and get them involved more.
And they did loosen that up, that they could sub before they graduated, but now has that gone away? Because it might have been just for a short amount
But
of time.
it's just as soon as they're done student teaching before the licensing gets done. So there's only that little bit of window we can use them.
Okay.
There was, I forgot that now that we started talking, one of the questions on there, a few of the bullet points were like, what could Iowa State do better? And so we were nice, but we gave them an honest list of things that, you know, we thought those sorts of things. They really were, we didn't have a ton of time to talk about it because we were running out of daytime. But they said, just know we'll take this list back, this agenda with all the bullet points, and we will talk about it at the university level. I mean, I don't know that they'll do anything about it, but at least we had a chance to express our concerns.
I like getting student teachers in. It's kind of a catch-22. If you get a good one, you can start really starting to grow that relationship and maybe keep them if it's possible. We turn over so many staff, so new people to our district don't host a student teacher. So, or new teachers within 3 or 4 years. And I mean, we just only, and then it's the same ones, and it's like our best teachers aren't even teaching because they're hosting student teachers. So we don't get as many as it would be nice to try to get people through here, but
It seemed like we used to have more,
we did
probably 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago.
back in those olden days with
From the
Lisa
work-
and Donna,
yeah.
and but we had the same staff, so we
Yeah.
get more, we haven't. Had a few.
But it was a great visit, and so we were excited about that. One thing, Mrs. Hoffman, Amanda Hoffman, the counselor, and I went to a meeting in Newton called Jasper County Cares. It's a monthly meeting, and it's got lots of resources, a lot of kind of human services type resources. And we met a couple of vendors, or I don't know what you call them, but resources that could come and help. They're gonna come to conferences and then set up a little resource fair to get families connected with different things that could be helpful. One of the things I think is really interesting is we had a guy from, can't remember what it's even called. But they set up a bedroom, and it's called Hidden in Plain Sight. And so they're gonna set up a little kind of fake bedroom in the gym, and then they're gonna have parents only, like kids are not allowed in it. But it's parents only, and they give you a list, there's like 20 things hidden in plain sight, and it's you know, like a Gatorade bottle that's actually a bottle that you can hide drugs in. And all these things that most, or I shouldn't say most, but many, including me, parents wouldn't have any idea that that's what it is. And these things are available to order like on Amazon. And so we want to set that out there so parents can just see it and be aware that that's even a possibility. I mean, things that I just would not have ever had any idea. If that was sitting in my kid's bedroom, just would have thought it was about the Gatorade. Not saying that my kids did or didn't. I hope they didn't know. There's so much garbage in their room. Who knows what's but anyway, so we're gonna set up this resource fair. I think I called it vendor fair, but it's really a resource fair. And then there's like a person from like the Iowa Gambling Coalition or Anti-Gambling Coalition, just to talk to parents and kids about the dangers. I mean, we see this all over the news right now, so it's very timely about underage gambling. So just some of those sorts of things that could be helpful to parents. So they're just gonna be there on the first night of parent-teacher conferences, because that's just what worked with their schedules. But we thought, you know, it's worth a shot of seeing how it goes, and if it's something that's successful, we'll maybe do it again. Actually, that's not even the thing that's on there. I didn't, the fall vendor fair is also coming, and that's something, a different thing. I didn't put the resource fair on there. So.
Okay, I was a little bit confused.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I noticed that, and then I just started talking about, I was so excited about the resource fair. Forgot all about the vendor fair. So the chamber is also gonna hold a vendor fair in October 28th, and it's gonna be at the same time the library is holding their costume party. And so I think they're gonna do it out in front of the school, and they're gonna block the street. So they asked us if that would be okay. So they've been in contact with the city to close the street, but then there's gonna be just like booths or whatever, people selling stuff.
They did that one night of fun days. Was it fun days?
Yeah.
Or, and didn't you do it on the farmer's market?
Yeah.
Didn't you have one on farmer's market?
Yeah. So they're gonna do that in the fall at trick or treating time. But that's a separate event from the resource fair. I was just talking about all these events. We have so many events coming up. And then just one thing to have on your calendar, and I just want your opinion. The December school board meeting is scheduled for December 20th. Last year, we moved it up to the second week of December, just because it gets crazy the further closer we get to Christmas. And last year, December, the third Wednesday, we actually got out at 1. That was the last day before Christmas break. So this year, we don't actually get out until the next day. But I just wanted to throw that out there. If you want to move it up to December 13th, there, I visited with Julie about, bills and that sort of thing, and she said there's no reason we couldn't, if we'd rather just get it out of the way, and then we'd have it one less thing to worry about 5 days before Christmas. And
Yeah.
1 day before
Yeah, it would
Christmas
actually
break.
help me.
So,
There's things that I have to do after the board meeting.
Yeah.
so if everybody's okay with that, we'll just move that. And we actually talked about potentially just making that a permanent move, like we've done with the spring break board meeting and the April board meeting. We could just move this December one to the second. Also, if everybody's good with that. Okay, well then we'll go ahead and move that, and then we'll.
Is that okay with you, Colette?
She's like, do it anytime you want. And so, we'll get the Zoom switched around and that kind of stuff. And then only the last thing is just mark your calendars. The Iowa School Board Association meeting is November 15th through 17th. And so, pretty good, I swear I looked it up.
Yeah.
It is, it's the week before Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
I think it's just early.
So just let us know if you're gonna be able to make it, and then, if we want to do the dinner, we wanna do it in Des Moines, or wherever, if we wanna do that or not. I know that's something we've done in the past. And it's been kind of sporadic, sometimes we've had people come, sometimes we haven't, so just think about it, and then you can get back to us. Okay?
You probably just wanna come.
You can just come and visit with us, Colette.
Please go to some of those sessions.
Should be missing this by Lynch.
You might be a breakout speaker.
Yeah,
Panel, there you
you could, you've had enough experience.
go.
They could have icy roads or something and all crowd in the school. That's what the clients ready to go. Roads are kind of.
Yeah. Remember when we were coming back that one time and one of the Peter Bar girls had went off?
Yeah.
I think were you driving the van? Was it
I
us?
think I was.
He's in there.
I was in there. Yeah.
Maybe Todd.
Oh,
I
that
don't want
was,
this.
yeah.
It must be kind of exciting.
That was kind of scary.
Otherwise, that's all I've got for you, so I just need to adjourn.
All right. Take your for adjournment. A second. Favors the aye. Motion adjourned at 7:59.
Yeah, not quite right.